We need to talk about something interesting.
I hope you had a very nice quarantine. Maybe you read some good books, or made a baby, or were deeply disturbed by the injustices of the real world or something. As for me, in this house newly purchased, I spent the year and a half very alone talking about every directing choice, symbol, shot composition, line, and theme of the 2011 anime TV series Puella Magi Madoka Magica. It was a Herculean effort that I will never repeat in my life, and in hindsight was stupid, so stupid. But at least there now exists some 16 or 17 hours of me explaining traditional magical girl values and how my anime of the decade uses, subverts, and reaffirms those genre values. Go watch it. I'd highly recommend it. And in doing that project, the looming specter in 50, maybe 75% of the comments was, quite unsurprisingly, y'all's various feelings on the 2013 sequel film Puella Magi Madoka Magica Rebellion. This is all just to say this is a somewhat anticipated video. That acknowledged, I'll not be setting the bus on fire and driving it off the cliff into a full-on analysis of every second of Rebellion. Even if I had, Madoka forbid, another pandemic to work with, I doubt I'd make it out alive. The movie is far too dense and the format far too intensive, plus I have videos about Junichi Sato that need to get made. Furthermore, unlike something ambiguous and open up for interpretation like The Adolescence of Utena, check my breakdown, Rebellion is far more, well, I'll say far more aggressive of a work. Ramshod might be a better word, though. So I've chosen to invert your expectations, completely betray my past characterization, and make an unpopular and baffling decision to end my series on, and attempt to rewrite Rebellion. Do you see what I did there? These videos are to be something along the lines of Belated Media's What If the Star Wars Prequels Were Good series, link below, whereby we are to go through the story of Rebellion and suggest changes that ideally improve the consistency of the writing. The primary lens for this would be the character dynamics and theming, and more importance will be placed here than on plot or creating amazing storyboarding or directing. That said, I've recruited an artist to visualize some of the concepts that I propose. Say hi, Zoe. Also, we are otherwise limited to screenshots or extremely short clips of Rebellion because, oh boy, did Sony and Aniplex come for my ass repeatedly with no warning and many copyright strikes. Of course, I fully expect all of you will have seen and know the plot of Rebellion. Pretty silly to be watching this video otherwise, but here's your spoiler warning if you need it. I'll say right now that of course this is an act of hubris. Of course I am just some random person with a Sayaka body pillow and a 10-plus year history of applying textual criticism concepts to shows for 7-year-old Japanese girls. I am not a professional writer or editor, and I could never dream to write something as pristine as Fate Zero. Read that straight or facetious or both, I do not give a shit. The easiest way to accept this hubris in stride as we rewrite Rebellion is because we have a leniency here that Gen Urobuchi did not have. There is, of course, this mammoth of a quote. Urobuchi. From the start, the idea was Homura becomes a witch and the story takes place inside her barrier, but at the time I wanted to end the story with Madoka taking Homura away with her. So I thought the story would end this time for real, but both Iwakami-san and Shinbo-san were like, no, we want to keep the story going after this, and wouldn't give me the okay. So then when I was getting really worried, Shinbo-san was like, might as well just make Madoka and Homura into enemies. And that suggestion was basically the breakthrough. I really agreed that Homura might be plausible as Madoka's equal opposite, but I'd already ended this story once, so it was hard to figure out how to expand it. That was when Mr. Shinbo suggested, how about a story with Homura confronting Madoka as an enemy? I thought if that's all permissible, then suddenly I'd have these options open to me, and that's how the current plot developed. End quote. This kind of trumps any and all analysis that I could attempt, trumps all the web weaving and hoop jumping to defend the final 15 minutes of the film and Homucifer that can, and believe me, has been done over the last decade-ish. As much as we can hem and haw and claim the author is dead, the fact of the matter is that Rebellion was objectively crafted with one resolution in mind, then was retrofitted with a new one. Take note of what Urobuchi is saying via omission in this quote. He's not saying Rebellion's ending is the logical conclusion of Homura's arc. Urobuchi isn't saying Homucifer makes thematic or character sense. He is saying he was asked to leave the world open-ended, and he did. I think many would probably guess something like this to be the case, judging by how awkwardly some of the scenes/elements appear to fit into the film and prior character arcs. Coming for you, Flower Scene. But with the benefit of the behind-the-scenes knowledge, we can easily start here and work backwards. We'll explore two potentialities. In our first alternative universe, that is this video, Urobuchi stands up to Shinbo and Iwakami like he did for Sayaka's death scene in episode 12. See this quote about the other time Shinbo tried to ruin Puella Magi Madoka Magica. Insists upon the story of the 5 characters must end with this coda that is rebellion, and with Madokami carrying Homura off on her Amida Buddhist procession, the good end, if you will. In the second yet unwritten video, we will attempt to oppose the restriction that Shinbo won out, and the film must end in some way with Homucifer manifest and the story of the Holy Quintet continuing, and the dead horse still being beaten as milk dollars are wrung from the decaying corpse of characters who have already long ago completed their arcs at the end of the TV series, so the Shaft cash cow will once again bring home the bacon in a 4th film. That one may be, as you may expect, a bit more difficult. Maybe we'll just wait for the 4th film to come out and talk about it after. Also, I'm sorry if this comes across a bit more fanficky and a less analytic-y in some parts. Actually, no, I'm not. Let's get started. Plenty to fix before we get to gay magical girl heaven. We must allow that Rebellion is a bit more than just Homura did nothing wrong, twisty, very twisty bait. It is also fan service. And not just the mommy towel throwing kind, though most certainly that is a part of it, but it's also Sayaka and Kyoko getting their resolution scene. It's also the Holy Quintet and the transformation sequences and Charlotte and a 10-fucking-minute mommy Homura fight scene that was only included because rule of cool and an offhand comment made in episode 2. In fact, the entire beginning of the film is based around the idea that Homura and the fan is given that idyllic fan service world with dope-ass Precure film-esque transformations and group attacks, only to find it eventually turning to ashes in their mouth as they realize it as a farce and then resolves to seek out the truth. Homura is the focal point here, and we are meant to explore why the world is not as we remember it just alongside Homura. This extends our readings of Homura as viewer insert/proxy and diegetic distances that we discussed in excruciating depth in the series breakdowns, which you, having watched all of that, are obviously familiar with. We very quickly acknowledge here that we have our cake and eat it too, that we as viewers are taken on a ride, are paradoxically able to enjoy the fan service at face value and see it used for the thematic purpose of its intrinsic emptiness/falseness that the movie's storylines and themes leverage it as. This is its own concept for a master's thesis and far too broad a topic for the scope of our rewrites. Maybe in another video essay when we want to talk about Kill la Kill or the modern anime media mix. Irregardless, the different modes of consumption largely work in Rebellion, and we have little need to mess with these juicy ideas in our rewrites. In this way, very little about the unraveling of the central twist of the plot will be changed, even down to the more egregious bits of fan service. Homura's mystery and the driving force for us, and her wanting to unravel it in the pursuit of truth, is plenty of narrative momentum to base a Coda movie off of. Nagisa will still exist, Sayaka and Kyoko will still hold hands, you are still permitted by the power vested in me as learned critic/Maguka authority/Grand Vizier of the Magical Girl Judgment Council to get hype as fuck at mommy's railgun. This largely will extend to symbols and designs as well. No edits aren't needed in the Salamander or Homulili's lilies. It really is a movie packed to the brim with well-conceived symbols and directing. Yet this necessarily has to be a largely negative video, right? So let me preempt your goddamn comments right now. I don't actually hate this film for its fan service, for symbolism, art, music, or its twisty nature. In fact, I love it for that. I think it's top fucking tier. We're not going to change anything about Sayaka's representation because it's perfect. We're not going to change any flaming bus or gush about the transformation sequences because they're perfect fan service and they do exactly what they need to do. And we'll stay away from criticizing the directing or turning this film into something other than what it was originally intended to be. Among the first scene of rebellion, we see the seeds of deception and tonal context already being sown. Homura's despair in the OP, Inu Curry witch-esque designs, fan service of seeing familiar faces again, and numerous callbacks to episode 1 and the like. Even the backgrounds are callbacks. There's even a fresh ballet theme with Madoka sneaking into the background familiars. It's the first, though very much not the last, parallel this movie and the concept film draws, intentionally or not, to Princess Tutu. Hold on to that juicy thought, though. So, acknowledging that we are obviously going to cut the Field of Flowers scene later in the film, because even if we weren't fixing Homura's character, it would still be the most hackneyed and ex post facto plot staple in this entire film, we're going to likewise cut Madoka x Homura in a scene that precedes Hitomi's nightmare. You know, that one that only exists to call back in the moment in the Field of Flowers scene and plot dump that it's been a month. We'll talk about why in a moment. The nightmares themselves are a fantastic idea. Even using Hitomi lets us explore the very limited other cast to some degree, and affirms the ending of episode 12 in the first-time viewer's mind via her relationship with Kyosuke, a very important part for the continuity puzzle, obviously conflicting with Madoka's presence further, and a further reward for the observant fan once again. But nightmares are also something more. It's the thing we deliberately were never given in Madoka Magica, and it's also our second eerie Princess Tutu parallel. It's a grounded monster of the day. A quick aside, in a magical girl show, the monster of the episode or monster of the day is usually a throwaway table or sneaker, or in Nanoha's case, blob, comically enlarged, looking like a bad Burger King Happy Meal toy, used to create some battle footage. Occasionally though, and more often than not in a good episode or series, like say Luna's Worst Day Ever or Heartcatch Pretty Cure, the monster of the day will have some element of grounded humanity, and the magical girl must exhibit magical girly values to understand the pain of the transformed / captured / affected character, thereby solving the problem of the monster of the day. That's pretty complicated though, tough to write, so it's often reserved for mid-season or mid-level baddies. Monsters of the day often get a kick from a magical girl and a purification stock footage sequence next ad infinitum. This is how the witches were treated in Madoka Magica, and if you want to hear me talk about that for a couple hours on end, the playlist will be linked below. So we have a lengthy scene of Hitomi's reason behind her nightmare. We completely understand where she is coming from in her selfishness. Even Sayaka and Kyoko understand, as they comment on it during the destruction. And this interesting relation to the Inukuri witch aesthetic invites more wonderful confusion in the contrast with how witches were treated. It makes it all the more impactful when they talk Homulily out of being a witch, just like a nightmare. And I have no qualms with the greatest transformation sequences in a magical girl work since I saw Sailor Jupiter's ass on Toonami when I was 11. Add in 2 scoops of Holy Quintet fan service, again drawing up the mystery of what context both Homura and the viewer lack. Straight fight porn that could shame the best Precure films. The magical girls here even heal instead of destroying or fighting. It's wonderful. And then we arrive here. To the best of my knowledge, there is no meaning or comprehensive reading that anyone has ever been able to find to describe the relevance of the cake song. There is a bit of symbolism behind things like the cake and the apple, assumed from the series, but there is no reason it should relate to Hitomi's issues, nor any reason why the viewer would relate the two. The cake song is not good storytelling. It's baffling. It's a waste of time. And it blows my mind. By all rights, we already have the setup for a talk it out Princess Tutu dance with me scene where the girls do indeed empathize, legitimize, and encourage Hitomi to face her true feelings with courage and love. Oh, and immediately after the cake song, we get the effects of what should be the positive resolution for helping the monster of the day. But the actual scene itself just doesn't happen. So why the heck should I sit through Sayaka saying she's a freaking raspberry instead of resolving the issue at hand? This one's a bit unique here from the later changes that we'll propose because it's unrelated to retrofitting Homucifer into a story that she wasn't intended for. It's just baffling how hard the ball was dropped here. Anyway, we very easily fix this by having each of the 4 girls attack Hitomi's selfishness using their personal perspective / backstory. Let's say this is done with Hitomi's head blob in the center of the table, and she talks back much like a Princess Tutu episode. Mommy comments, "It's not ever quite as bad as it feels in the moment. You're alive and full of possibility when the sun rises. Tell us why this night is so dark." I can't compete against the violin. I want him to look at me with that passion. "You're right, Hitomi," Sayaka says. "You're right to let him know how you feel, and you're right to feel that way. Stand up for yourself." "Right? It's so unfair," Kyoko comments. "But you're not stupid. You know that you can't ever force someone to do what you want them to do. People are strong and independent, idiotic even. But he's right too, to love playing so much." I know, and I love him for it." Then the girls turn and look at Homura expectantly. She's panicked and fumbles. Sometimes you feel that you can't do anything right, and that everything will end up different from how you imagined, and that you should just give up." And she bows her head. And then Madoka finishes off screen as Homura's shocked face pops up. "But you don't, and Kyosuke won't either, and neither will we. Just because he may not know how to show it doesn't mean he doesn't love you. Keep sharing your feelings with him, as clear as the blue sky on a cloudless day. He'll realize soon enough what a valuable thing it is to have someone like you supporting him." Hitomi smiles. Sayaka picks her up in an embrace, and it continues right where it left off in the actual film. And here's what that does. It sets up a reason for Homulily to appear. Did you catch it? As it stands, the film's justifications for Homura's despair inside her grief seed is that she ostensibly comes to believe that Madoka regretted her wish and that Homura ultimately failed in the events of episode 11 and 12. This, of course, directly conflicts and retcons all the character growth and thematic weight behind what is shown in episode 12. I think this completely fixes the largest problem with Homura in Rebellion. Instead of thinking that she failed Madoka, her new struggle is instead the creeping realization that she could never live up to the ideals of Madoka and the genre that she stood for and stood in for. She just wasn't compassionate or understanding enough. Homura never really did, never really could ever embody those, and was always acting the magical girl, the fake heroine. And her curse is the self-induced paranoia of imposter syndrome. And the story of Rebellion is then her creeping realization of that perception, while simultaneously and unconsciously, and perhaps not at all paradoxically, demonstrating to everyone that she's already overcome it, or that it was all in her mind. There's another film that I'd like to draw on here. It's one of my favorite animated works, very thematically in line with the magical girl genre, and it's Winnie the Pooh. Pooh's Grand Adventure, his first film, is structured in this way where Pooh is alone with one of the other characters and they overcome some issue by embodying and realizing a value or trait that they think they lack after being convinced by Pooh. It happens again and again with different values for different characters, including Pooh himself in the climax. 4 times does Homura then demonstrate her to the 4 other girls in this film, with Kyoko on the bus, with Mommy after a fan fanservice spectacle in the back alley with Sayaka, and finally with Madoka in the scene we'll be replacing the flower scene with. So then we funnel these into the climax, into the fight with Homo Lily, and then bam! An actually coherent film. I'll reemphasize that we are able to do this surprisingly easily while leaving the plot of discovery and realization of where the story is set wholly, and I mean wholly, unchanged. The only things we need to add is a bit of dialogue here and there to show her cracking, and of course, how strong she truly is. There is now a rather redundant and unnecessary plot hole that we can shore up. In Rebellion Prime, Urobuchi needed some way to justify why the characters don't behave with the knowledge of the series, except for the parts like Sayaka where they do. This results in some convoluted explanation of Sayaka and Bebe maintaining Madokami's memories and Kyoko and Mami just conveniently having their memories wiped. It's shit. I'm sorry, I tried to be a bit more eloquent than that, but I hated this in 2013 and I still hate it now. Not only is it completely contrived and fails the believability test that we talked about for good writing in episode 9 of our breakdown series, but it's almost completely mentioned in passing in the film. And then it even presents this paradox. How can we view these characters through the same lens and have the same emotional attachment to these characters that we did? How can we know them to be the same characters of Madoka Magica if, so conveniently, the entire events of the series of Madoka Magica are wiped from the minds of 3 of the 5. Literally all the praise in the world that we can give to Sayaka's portrayal, how wonderful a realized adult, empowered, and justified Sayaka is, just isn't with an ignorant Mami, Kyoko, or a representation of Madoka. Perhaps this is the way that we could go down into the Homucifer route in the other video, her rejecting the mannequins of Mami, Kyoko, and Madoka because she knows them to be different than who they were at the end of the series. Perhaps the 4th movie will provide some insight onto the logical leaps taken here, but that's talk for another time. Right now we're fixing this plot hole because it's not even necessary. Now we operate from the assumption that the 4 girls came into Homura's soul gem in an attempt to thwart the incubator's plans by converting Homo Lily back from being a witch, or by talking her down off the ledge. They were informed to the same level and all on the same page. No plot hole, no large changes to their actions, no influence on Homura finding out the truth. Maybe we'll add one line of resolution in the climax Homo Lily battle scene that they had to reach Homura where she was at and let her convince herself that she always had the power to be a magical girl inside of her all along, because outright confrontation and directly challenging someone's worldview never works, as shown multiple points throughout the show itself. Heck, maybe we throw in a small flashback scene of Nagisa appearing to Mami as an angel, ditto Sayaka and Kyoko, just so we know they were recruited and shared the info/plan to rescue Homura. That's neither here nor there, and that's for the end of the film. Right now we're concerned about our 4 separate times Homura is unknowingly tricked into demonstrating how compassionate and understanding she truly is. So let's chronologically zip on past some more shots of Homo Lily's familiars with a music box, and get on to the next interaction Homura has with one of the girls. See if we can't Tiggerfy Kyoko. Homura's justification for beginning to unravel the mystery that the viewers would be right alongside of her with, remember, the first-time viewing experience is important for this film. Her justification is that she remembers, or at least feels, that Kyoko is different somehow. Kyoko and Mami are now informed with our rendition of Rebellion, and Kyoko must act innocent, whereas her personality would tend to be coy or smug, being the one who is now the wise one, just as Homura was in the stopped fight in episode 5. But there's one other true emotion that Kyoko would rely on now: compassion. She honestly does, having done it once before for Sayaka in episode 9, want to save Homura from turning into a witch, and throwing in a smug smile or cocky attitude, throwing in a bit of earnest love into her entire time with Homura wouldn't be hard at all. We'll substitute that in over the bewilderment and amnesia she has here. Finally, we'll just need a bit to demonstrate Homura's theme / issue of doubting her own abilities with Kyoko. Since Kyoko does love to talk, and since there's no action over this part of the film, let's leave it at a dialogue edit instead of adding any conflict. Mami has that covered. Let's also reference their best scene together, the dog-drug reinforcement pact in episode 6. Maybe something along these lines. After the bus, as they walk, when things get out of hand, Kyoko more bemused than panicking. Well, things rarely go the way you expect them to. The trick is working with what's in front of you and doing what you think is right. You really are suited to being a magical girl. Nah, I just know what it's like to be hurt. That keeps me going through whatever nonsense comes my way, no matter what, at any cost. It's easy, you see, because I know how I feel. And I bet other people probably feel the same way. I've just got the power to do something about it. Do you know what I mean, Homura? She fidgets. I think this place is wrong. No, I know it is. And I think I know how. Maybe we keep a few of the other lines too, like, this is a trap, make no mistake. They're fine. Then move on to, don't worry, Kyoko. I'll figure it out for all our sakes. And I'll not let any of you put yourself at risk as I do it. I couldn't bear to see anything happen to all of you, so I'd ask you to keep this a secret from the others right now. And now Kyoko's smile and head tilt in front of the moon have a new context. Who are you anyway, Homura Kemi? Because you really are suited for being a magical girl. She tosses the lollipop. That contains a very nice callback to episode 5. We're very witty. The scene ends in exactly the same tough guy, Homura throwing away her glasses, but now the scene is changed tonally, with Kyoko's gentle, informed guidance pushing Homura down her path. She demonstrates resolve, echoes the solution that she had in the series, shows some passion for the lives of her friends. We should mention that a lot of the dialogue and way of looking at the mystery is still workable within the context of Homura being trapped in her own grief seat and making up a narrative about everyone forcing her into this reality. Really surprisingly little about this needs to be changed for our ultimate resolution. It's a testament, really, to how well the original concept of rebellion would work without Homucifer. Even Mami's now heartfelt lines about having other people beside her, never dreaming of this, all fit just fine into the context of her having some sort of vacation / family reunion in Homura's grief seed, and how much she and Madoka are enjoying being in a traditional magical girl warrior show that they were always denied in the series proper. Also, it's more fan service. Ignorant memory wiped Mami would still feel exactly the same about this as informed Mami on a mission would, but now we're able to appreciate it at face value. So with that established, let's skip right to the fight scene. This also largely works in the framework of Homura unknowingly demonstrating the compassion and empathy that she would need to show / realize she has, and little needs to change. With only minor massaging, this is fully functional. We'll just redact small lines like, I was going to wait until I understood the situation, and put maybe a bit more compassion in her voice and actions, instead of the eye-rolling denial of, really now, Homura, how can you say such things? Informed Mami hears Homura beginning to unravel the mystery and says something more engaging. Like, is that what you see Bebe for, Homura? A mistake that must be eliminated? I won't allow you to hurt her. Deliberate use of that pronoun. If that really is your intention, I'll defend my friends to the end. Something like this allows the ambiguity of a Mami simply defending Bebe and the associated weirdness it invites for the first-time viewer, but also removes that as the only possibility. Now she can be seen as having another, hereto unknown motive, judging from her perspective. Her Mami ignorant does nothing for us, her or the film, and I'm glad to get rid of it. The rest of the scene, shooting herself instead of Mami, shooting Mami in the thigh instead of the head, the entire scene is already exactly what we would write to show Homura's compassion demonstrated with actions. She has no desire to fight Mami, but needs to push the boundaries of the mystery. It's beautiful. In this version, we're just going to tie this scene back into the ultimate climax and make it meaningful. So tied in the ribbons, defeated, Homura says, in the end, I really am weak. Quite the contrary, Homura. The lengths you'll go to avoid causing pain to others make me jealous. I wish I had your talent for being a magical girl. She smiles. Something like that. Just something to put the weight and spotlight on Homura's compassionate decisions during the fight. Of course, we change Mommy's Wraith's revelation to a slip of the tongue, deliberate or otherwise, and the Nagisa reveal to a stern look of disapproval / wink of acknowledgement, or maybe just cut them as it may break the serious tone. Enter Sayaka's glorious fire extinguisher throw. Now that is fan service I can get behind. We can really just as easily massage Homura's talk with Sayaka in the alley into a meaningful and unwitting demonstration of her wiser and older personality. When Sayaka stabs the sword into her shield, a fantastic symbol of growth on Sayaka's end, mind you, just a small tweak to her line. Is that the only trick you have? Even with all the magic and willpower in the world, all it'll give you is an untimely end. Believe me. And then the scene plays out mostly unchanged. But let's have Homura disarm Sayaka with words. After the Octavia in the puddle, Homura's attempt to stop time is again thwarted by Sayaka's sword. But instead of the kick from Homura, let's make it a hug. Or if that's a bit too on the nose, because Homura, even at the end of episode 12, doesn't really strike me as a huggy person, have her fall to her knees and raise her hands in defeat. Either way, Homura says, "I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you back then. I know how much you suffered because of me, and I'm sorry I wasn't stronger." Sayaka is shocked. The sword falls out of the shield, and the time stops as Sayaka brings up her cloak to shield her face, and the film continues as normal with Octavia's form. Pretty good, I think. I marginally want to change her last line as well. I think one of the smaller factors of rebellion that falls by the wayside is this idea of Homura ruining the idyllic life they have in pursuit of the truth. This is a concept that is much better structured, explored, and consummate in The Disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, and it doesn't really help either Rebellion Prime or our rewrite all that much here. It's a good idea, don't get me wrong, the eternal pursuit of truth and the pain that it causes, but it kind of seems like the Sayaka is deliberately trying to infantilize and placate Homura indefinitely with a fake paradise, which doesn't make much sense with the magical girl ethos, especially coming from the mouth of someone who deliberately chose not to undo her own tragedy. Anyway, Sayaka's goal, like the other three, is to make Homura realize how good of a magical girl she really is, and always was. So her line here shows her surprise and encouragement while not destroying Homura's mind state for escaping this witch's labyrinth. You really are full of surprises, you know. Well, I wasn't expecting anything less from you after all. You already know the truth, even if it isn't the one that you're looking for. We're going to acknowledge everything we've said may necessitate some continuity cleanup over the course of the remainder of the film, but let's not stop here and finagle every line. The general structure remains the same, and I do not care about specific one-offs or how we now have to rewrite a Kyubey exposition dump later in the film. We arrive at the flower scene. I have nothing positive to say about the flower scene. It functionally ruins Homura and Madoka as characters and betrays everything great about episode 12. As such, we will replace the flower scene with another nightmare and give Madoka her actual scene with Homura, one that does what the other three 1v1 scenes did, as well as affirms episode 12 instead of tearing it down. Wild, sacrilegious, scandalous, I know. Since their relationship in episode 11 and 12 was facilitated / involved with Junko, my first instinct was to build a scene around Junko's nightmare. The thing is, Junko is a character who is far past the point of having any nightmare-esque issues without them feeling a bit forced. Even her relationship to Madoka was largely resolved in episode 11's legendary stairs/slap scene, and then her and Homura came close to understanding things in episode 12. I'm still gonna write this out with Junko in mind because it sets up for some nice dialogue, but perhaps we could shift this scene to be about the teacher, Kazuko, or Madoka's brother, or perhaps even an extended universe character. It's very fluid, and I welcome your suggestions if you dislike it. Back in the film now, we could rewrite everything for another battle scene, but there's really no need. Homer is off on her crazed boat ride, and we have the other four finishing up a fight off-screen in absentia. Maybe Madoka comes falling off the top of the screen just as they finish up, in the same spot chronologically for Homura as when she appears on the bridge. She de-transforms and greets Homura, asking where she was. She just missed a battle, even maintaining that line of, "You shouldn't wander off on your own like that." This also subtly implies that they don't need Homura to succeed. Then Junko's blob head plops into the boat. The other three look on unnoticed, Kyoko about to spring down, and Mommy says, "Just trust her," or even just shaking her head, and they walk away. Also, I'm not married to the boat or anything. The setting and whatever for this doesn't rightly matter. It could move around or even be set in the boat or the field. That's a problem for the Shinbo blob head to fuss about. A shin blob. Madoka holds her mom's nightmare as Homura looks on. "See, Mom? See how pretty the stars are at night? And all the lights of the city? All the countless loves and lives all throughout time and space. More lives than all the stars in the sky and of the city below. What a beautiful world it all is, with all those lights, each one full of opportunity." Madoka gently tosses up Junko's blob head, and she spins around in awe of the stars and lights below. "Say, Homura, what do you think her nightmare was?" Deep in her eyes, Homura stares, sees herself reflected in Madoka's vision, like Shinbo loves to do. "She was terrified to lose you, and she wanted more than anything to protect you because she loved you so much. But she wasn't able to, and you slipped away." Homura is on the verge of tears, tonally much like the flower scene. Madoka giggles. "Well, that probably is true, but she certainly isn't that weak, and I know she trusted me. I think it's something else." Homura is reeling double back on herself and clearly upset. The head falls down gently and is caught by Madoka in a warm embrace. "How about it, Mom? We're listening. What made your heart waver tonight?" "I'll never know if she did the right thing." Faith does require a lot of effort, especially faith in other people. "And I did mess up all the time, especially with Madoka. I wasn't perfect, and I could have done a better job raising—" Homura jumps in. "That's ridiculous, Miss Kaname. No one could ever have been a better parent. Everything you did for your family was beyond what anyone could ask you. Anyone would love to have you in their life." Madoka giggles, still side-eyeing Homura as she nominally speaks to Junko. "Maybe you made the right kind of mistakes then." Homura, still earnest. "It's not just faith in the people in your life, but more than that. You need to have faith in yourself." Junko looks at her, smiles, and the evaporation begins, much like Hitomi's earlier in the film, and Madoka chimes in, looking at Homura directly, not at Junko. She smiles, then looks up at the fading Junko head. "Mom, if someone tells you it's wrong to hope, keep telling them they're wrong. Every time. Hang in there. We love you. I love you. Let's have that drink someday." Of course, this is reflective writing, see my video on A Place Further in the Universe, on Junko and Homura, but it allows Homura to be confused and upset enough about her issues and her latent love of Madoka to disassociate it and miss it. So after that, Homura's in tears. "You always knew just what to say, just what to do. You and Mommy and Kyoko and Sayaka are all so good at being magical girls. How is it so easy for you?" Madoka giggles. "I think you know the secret, Homura. It's been here all along, if you just let yourself see it." It's got a real wake up, Leela kind of vibe to it, doesn't it? It's from the Futurama episode. But it works because that vibe largely matches the mission of the four who came into Homura's Soul Gem on a rescue mission. It also fits largely into the revelation narrative. Junko shouldn't know about Madoka. And it's enough to let Homura understand plot-wise whose labyrinth this is. She proceeds with calling Kyoko and the film continues to resolve 12, unchanged but for continuity edits, very gothic, very spooky. Let's say we give Kyubey one more kick 'em while they're down line of, we suspected you would fester some doubts about your worthiness. We didn't expect you to be this unworthy of holding the mantle of magical girl, though. Or some shit to make up for a few that we cut and, you know, further push our Homura's buttons. All goes according to Keikaku until we arrive at Homu Lily's inner turmoil. So the entire movie is working towards the money shot of Homura and Madoka both with their bows breaking out from Homu Lily and shooting the sky. It's kind of really obvious from a pacing and grandeur angle, and it should also be from a narrative and character arc angle as well. This should be the ultimate reaffirmation of the series and characters. But it isn't. And for two reasons. First off, it's completely overwritten in the viewer's mind and in relevance in the story itself by Homucifer. This triumph, as it should be, should bring about some element of catharsis. Her reward for puzzling out where she was plot-wise is her learning the truth of Kyubey's deception, but this just leads to witchiness due to her curse. But then her reward for figuring out her character issues, realizing that she had the power inside of her all along with the help of very abstract and metaphorical Madoka splats and giant arm, should be the transformation back from being a witch and further proof of the indomitability of hope. This is later kneecapped as even a minor message by the fact that Homura throws it all away 30 seconds later. Secondly, her redemption and the relationship with Madoka is completely unearned. Like, seriously, this is the weakest babyface turn I have ever seen in my 20 years of watching pro wrestling magical girls. As this is, in our version, now the actual point and climax of the film, not to be invalidated, let's actually give her a moment worthy of the genre. Let's call back to her demonstrating how much she truly was a magical girl to the other four, a la Promise of the Rose. Let's show her making a determined choice, a la Duck against the Raven. Let's give Madoka more than literally 2 lines. What the fuck? I like the visual of Homura holding the gun to the silhouette of herself. Also, the visual of the hand reaching in to the window. The scene isn't bad per se. Let's cut the shouldn't go off by your own line. It just needs to be extended, probably with a new piece of music and more dialogue. We can functionally keep a bit of Homura's sorrow from the angle of Madoka's wasted life, but with that only being a secondary or confounding concept in Homura's mind. One that she follows but still doesn't rely on or truly believe in. And one thing that I want to bring back again is the nightmare visuals, as it's a brilliant piece that the movie introduces and then just abandons. This will now be the 3rd one, and that feels like a great capstone. So, after grabbing her hand, Madoka holds the nightmare blob head of Homura. Madoka smiles, lets Homura's nightmare go, and then walks away into the darkness. Maybe cut interstitially to the shot of Madoka flying up to fight Walpurgis knocked from timeline 1 where Homura watched her go. The nightmare Homura and Homura speak at the same time. No, Madoka, not again, not now. Don't leave me. And now Homura proper, as magical girl, holds the nightmare head of Homura. The rest of the scene takes all the resources from the final 20 minutes of the original film and looks amazing and abstract, I'm sure, as Homura talks over it. I was always fighting for your sake, because that was the only thing I had left to guide me. But time after time, I was never good enough. I never knew the right answer. I was a poor husk of a magical girl who couldn't save anyone. And even at the end, you still left. And I fought on, day after day, but it was never any clearer, any easier. I was never able to be as strong, as beautiful as you and Mommy and everyone. And I couldn't help but think that if I was a smarter or stronger magical girl, you could have stayed. You could have been allowed to stay with me and the others. We could have had a life like this, together. Homura looks at the nightmare, which is now the nightmare head of Madoka. But you wouldn't have. I know. That's what I love about you. You would have wanted to help anyone who was suffering. It was the feeling that I clung to all this time. Madoka would want to help them. Everyone I came across. I really did try my best. With Kyoko, Mami, Sayaka, and everyone. I really did. Flashbacks to the moments of the show and of the movie, quickly. I really tried to be a magical girl. It really is what I wanted to be. A magical girl as great as you. Besides you. A magical girl who brought hope. That's all I wanted. That idea. Your idea. My idea. That hope. It should exist. It must exist. Fade back in on Homura holding Madoka. Not as a nightmare, but in a hug from behind. The shots match the naked space hug scene, only with the characters flipped. And that's why you were the best magical girl ever, Homura. You gave me all the strength I needed and never stopped. And you did it for everyone else, too. You let us know what was worth fighting for and never gave up on it. And we were able to live because of you. Madoka, She turns around and holds her hand, mirroring that shot from the opening when Madoka kisses Madoka on the forehead. I am sorry our normal time together was so brief, but let's make up for that now. Things won't be exactly the same as you wanted, but in its own way, I think our story together from now on can be its own special brand of happiness. And we can start again, here and now, and I promise we'll be that hope you gave to everyone. That hope you gave to me. Madoka wipes away Homura's tears. Homura's eyes lock Madoka's as she looks up to see her crying as well. Homura's expression changes, and she wipes Madoka's tears away in turn. Her facial expression changes to joy and determination. Homura nods, and the rosewood bows appear. Let's go, Madoka. Outside this world. I'm ready now. The film ends with the completed procession to gay magical girl heaven and cut to the end credits song that now fits much more nicely with the film. If you'll humor me for just a moment, there is a very famous Emily Dickinson poem that I'd like to read to you right now. It goes as follows. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. There also is an even better poem by Caitlin Seda, a response to Emily Dickinson. It goes as follows. Hope is not the thing with feathers that comes home to roost when you need it the most. Hope is an ugly thing with teeth and claws and patchy fur that's seen some shit. It's what thrives in the discards and survives in the ugliest parts of our world, able to find a way to go on when nothing else can even find a way in. It's the gritty, nasty little carrier of such diseases as optimism, persistence, perseverance, and joy, transmissible as it drags its tail across your path and bites you in the ass. Hope is not some delicate, beautiful bird, Emily. It is a lowly little sewer rat that snorts pesticides like they were lines of coke and still shows up on time to work the next day, looking no worse for the wear. I do hope that clarifies things for you. So if we're writing out Homucifer from this film, we probably need to retitle the film. How about Puella Magi Madoka Magica, a redemption story? Turning Homura back from Homolili is a big deal and kind of the core conceit of the film. I like it. I really do. But honestly, I don't expect you to like all this I've suggested here. I'm not sure if I even feel it's up to the level of the quality of the film. What I do know is I would be satisfied with this as coda to Puella Magi Madoka Magica. This is what I expected and wanted the feature film to be. So I hope this satisfactorily disappointed and or confused you, as nothing would make for a truer Rebellion experience. Please angrily criticize my edits in the comments after first liking or disliking the video. The algorithm thanks you for watching to the end. And if you feel you can take up the challenge, I'd have you rewrite Rebellion, or the series itself, or Magia Record, or your favorite anime, whatever it may be. See if you can't do better than the original creators. Special shoutouts to the illustrator on this project, Zoe, and the editor, and all my patrons and friends, including Kilv5, Tyranno, and Homu, who graciously reviewed the script for continuity of ideas, you the real heroes. If you'd like to support me in doing something along these lines for the 4th Madoka film, or fund those sweet Junichi Sato videos, head on over to the Patreon and definitely subscribe. Stay tuned for next time, as we do something hopefully as scandalous and interesting as this was.